Okay, so our new topic for today, we're going to talk about percents. And to understand percents, you need to understand the word percent. Percent is actually made up of two words. Per, if you think of miles per gallon or dollars per hour, it's for each or out of. And cent, if you think of cents in a dollar or years in a century, it's 100. So percent literally means out of 100. So 38% means 38 out of 100. In fact, it's that easy to turn a percent into a fraction. 38%, 38 out of 100. It's there. Now we wouldn't leave it like that. What would we want to do with that?
Reduce it.
Reduce it. Both those can be divided by 2. Give us 19/50ths. What if we had like 70%? What's that going to become? 7 over 100. And then, of course, it can be reduced by 10. 7/10. What if we have 100? Yeah, you'd want to reduce it 7/10, so you're going to stop.
Oh.
19/50 is as far as we can take that one. So now what if we have 145%? What's that become? 145 out of 100. Now at this point we see that that's an improper fraction. So we can change that to 1 and 45 over 100. And those can be reduced by 5. So that's 1 and 9/20. Don't forget the 1. A lot of people reduce that to 9/20 and forget about the 1 there. How about 12.5%? That will become 12.5 over 100. Now we don't like having decimals within our fractions, so how do we get rid of it? We're going to multiply. It's one decimal place, so we'd multiply by 10. If there was 2 decimal places, we would have multiplied by 100 and so on. So 12.5 times 10 is 125. 100 times 10 is 1,000. Of course, now that can be divided by, both of them can be divided by 5 or 20 or actually 125, which will give us 1 out of these. How about this one? 18 1/3%. What's that become? 18 1/3 over 100. And I get asked that all the time. Why can't I just turn it into a decimal and move the decimal point? Well, because 1/3 doesn't convert into a decimal real easy. If it was 18 1/2, you could get away with that, or 18 1/4. So here, to convert that into a fraction, now to get rid of the 18 1/3, to get rid of it, since 3 is your denominator, if you multiply by 3, it gets rid of it. 100 times 3 is 300. 18 1/3 is 55 thirds times 3, so 3 over 1. 3's cross cancel, it's 55. Divide by 5. 11/60. Make sense? How about changing our percent into a decimal? Well, we've said 38% is 38 out of 100. How do we turn a fraction into a decimal? Well, you divide by 100. Just divide out the fraction, right? 38 divided by 100, which is going to be 0.38. Anytime we divide by 100, it just moves the decimal 2 spots. So like 47% is going to become what is a decimal? 0.47. Yeah. This one? It's multiplied by, since it was thirds, I multiplied by 3 to get rid of the fractions. Yeah, so that's where the 55 thirds came from. So 54 plus 1, 55. Yeah, so the 3 and the 3 get cross cancel out. So it's 1 and 1, so you got 55 over 1 or just 55. Yeah, I skipped a couple steps there. What if we have 9%? What's that become as a decimal? 0.09, good. 120%? 1.2, good. So you guys get the, let's do this one. 7.3%. Perfect. Going the other way from a decimal into a percent, of course, we're just moving the decimal point back. So 0.58 becomes what as a percent? 58%. 0.2? 20%. 7? 700%. Good. 4.1. 410%. 0.065. 6.5%. Turning a fraction back into a percent. We're going to start with one that we all know. 3/4 is what percent? 75%. And there's a couple of ways, if you didn't know that, a couple of ways you could have gone about it. You could have divided that out to make a decimal, 0.75, and moved the decimal point. That'll work. Sometimes we run into ones that don't divide out evenly, so we'll have to deal with that. Another way you could do it is, of course, our proportions we've been talking about. 3/4, 3 out of 4 is what that's saying. A percent is always out of 100. So 3 times 100 divided by 4 is 75. So 75 out of 100, or 75%. Oh, let's say you've got 2/7 and you want to convert that into percent. So 2 out of 7 is how much out of 100? Cross multiply and divide. 2 times 100 divided by 7 is going to be approximately 28.571429. Correct? So 28.57% if you're going to the nearest hundredth of a percent. Questions so far? Okay. So when we go to calculate with these percents, we use this same proportion type setup. For example, let's say I want to find blank is 40% of 60. Well, I always start out with the percent. So 40% is 40 out of 100. Now I've got a missing number and I've got a 60 that have to go over here. I need to figure out which one matches up with the 40. Now the 40 is the piece, the portion. That's our percent. 100% means the whole thing, or the starting amount. So it's blank is 40%. So that missing number goes with the 40. Of 60, you can think of that as out of 60, which would imply the 60 goes on bottom. So you cross multiply. 40 times 60 is 2,400. Divided by 100 is just 24. Oh yeah, 32 is blank percent of 40. Now I said I always start with the percent, but here we don't have the percent. So I'm just going to start out with blank over 100. Now I have the 32 and the 40 that have to go over here. Which one goes on top? 32, because 32 is the blank percent. So 32 goes up with the missing percent. Of 40, or out of 40, you can think of it, has to go on bottom. 100 times 32 is 3,200. Divided by 40 is 80. So 32 is 80% of 40. Or we have one like this. We have the percent again, so 30% is 30 out of 100. 15 is 30% of blank, so 15 is 30%. The 15 goes with the 30. We will cross multiply. 100 times 15 divided by 30 is 50. So it's 30% of 50. What do you think?
Perfect.
Perfect. Now, this is using the proportion. There is something out there called the rate method of percents. Using the rate method of percents, a rate is just the decimal form of a percent. So if you're using the rate method, you would look at this. 40% is 0.4. You would take 60 times 0.4, gives you 24. That's probably how a lot of you were taught, is to turn the percent into a decimal. And you can see it gives you the right answer. It's actually kind of a little bit less work here. The problem with that method is, let's go down here. You turn 30% into decimals, 0.3. But it's not 15 times 0.3. It has to be 15 divided by 0.3. Gives you 50. So with that rate method, not only do you have to convert the percent into a decimal, but then you have to figure out, do I multiply by it or divide by it? Or you can have one like this where there's no percent given, so you have to divide 32 by 40 to get 0.8 and then move the decimal to make it a percent. So there's different processes you'd have to remember to do it that way. That's why I like the proportion. If you use this proportion, all you have to do is get the numbers plugged in the right spot. You cross multiply and divide every time, and it works out. There's no remembering, do I multiply, do I divide and then move the decimal point, or whatever. The proportion is always the same. Now, if you learn the rate method and you're good at it and you like it and you want to keep doing it, that's fine with me. I'm not going to stop you from that. But if you've struggled with them before, try this proportion. It sometimes does help. I'm going to be giving you a packet. In this packet, there'll be pages 107 through 115. I'll go through it with you in a second. I'll show you which one of those are homework.
Actual homework is there?
Actual homework, yeah. No.